What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? I'm Mr. Rad. Welcome back to the Rad Workshop. In today's video, I'm going to be finishing up the last bit of fabrication I've got to do on the hybrid RX8, in addition to taking everything off of the wonderful 130 horsepower Renesis engine that this car had whenever I bought it, and putting all the intakes, the coil, the oil lines, the oil metering pump, all that stuff. We're going to put all of that on the new hybrid engine, which means we got to take the hybrid engine out of the car. But first, we got to build an engine mount, and we've got to put O2 sensor bungs in our crazy 5-into-1 equal length crazy weird header, to which I appreciate all of you guys' comments on the design of my header. I'm excited to see how it performs and to see, who's right, who's wrong. Will it work? Will it not work? Who knows? We're just shooting from the hip and trying to make this thing run. So let's fire up the plasma table. We're going to cut out some tabs because we got a plasma table. We don't cut anything out by hand anymore around here when I can just draw it in the computer and hit go. We need a tab for the engine side of our engine mount, so we're going to start there, and then I'm going to bend up some 1-inch just regular old round bar, and I'm going to make me a little hook and go on the engine, similar to how the factory one was. If you watched the previous video, you could see that weird clunky piece of aluminum. But let's cut the tabs out first, get to cutting, grinding, welding, and be ready to rock. I've got a nice white Hawaiian shirt on today for this one, so we'll see how dirty I can get this thing by the end of the video. Literally the simplest design ever. So this is Fusion 360. We just went over here, sketched out a little tab. We got a 0.4-inch hole in there. The plasma doesn't really like to cut much smaller than that, so we're just whipping at this. Had to move my laptop stand over closer to the plasma table, So once you've got your plasma table connected to your fire control, then I can play a video game and I can drive this thing around over here. So we know that that's our cut material, just some simple bar stock here. We want to make sure this guy's nice and straight, or at least straight enough that our bracket will fall out the bottom of it. Turn on the dry run and we're going to run it dry. So you can see here, makes the hole. And it makes the bracket without exceeding the limits of our piece of material. So we'll go ahead and shut this off. We'll turn the dry run off, go to work 0. And literally, it's as simple as just hit start, cover your eyes. Bam, bing. Just like that. I didn't have to cut that out by hand. It's like a car washer, just blowing your car off. Cleaning the metal with the air from the plasma cutter. Look at that. Oh, so one of these tabs is going to go right here, and then the other one is up here on this bolt location, so it's probably going to sit 90 degrees like that and go to this housing stud right here where a GSLSE or your stock RX7 exhaust would have mounted up. I don't think it's possible to work on cars without getting on the ground at least once. Need this deal up out of here. Hybrid engine is out, and now I get the fun task of taking every single part off of this old engine and putting it on the hybrid engine. Literally, intake, wiring harness, injectors, oil metering pump, all that deal. And then, because I'm semi-unprepared for this day, I'm going to hope that the lower intake manifold gasket is in good shape, and also that a few of the other random odds and ends O-rings, that they're just good. This thing was rebuilt like 15,000 miles ago or 20,000 miles ago, but that was like 5 years ago. So remember guys, years and rebuilt and miles, there's a juggling act of all of that, because to me, the longer something is sat, I don't care if it was new when they parked it, it's still going to be in rough shape. So let's get this thing torn down. Before I put this intake manifold on, I want to show you something cool that I kind of came up with on this deal. So When you're doing the hybrid, you're gonna lose the oil metering pump ports on your housings. So they're gonna go away. You're gonna have 2 now instead of 4, and they're in a different location, and they're a different depth. So you can't use the RX8 like oil metering pump. This thing, it's too long, won't go in. Don't try to force it, it'll break stuff and you won't be happy. I've grabbed some GSL SE, some old school like RX7 style, FC style oil metering pump injector valves here. I've rerouted the vacuum so I just have 2 ports instead of all 4 of them through the little plastic isolator under your fuel rail. And then I was able to kind of fandangle the 2 of the 4 RX8 oil metering pump lines to fit with those. The other 2, I simply just looped them together right here with some vacuum lines, so it's not like we're pushing 80 psi oil pressure to your oil injectors. Literally, it's not that big of a deal to just loop them like this. The oil metering pump will still run, the ECU will still be happy. So that's my goal, is to try to just run the 2 injectors, because on an RX8, I'm not sure if in VersaTuner I can just delete the oil metering pump, but if the oil metering pump throws a code, the car goes into limp mode, and we don't want to be limp moding our already slow car. So I'm ready to put the intake manifold on here. The gasket, not the best shape, but I have some RTV silicone that says it's in good shape, so we're putting it on regardless. Do I want to leave it, or do I want to change it? From right here. Right here, you should just change it. Okay. Slide this back up. We gotta do this before the silicone dries. Alright. The GSLSE studs for the lower intake manifold are shorter. These 2 bolts right here on the intake hit the oil metering pump injectors. Must remove. I swear, I don't ever lose my 10 mil. I lose the 14. Oh. It had the 10 mil on it, that's why it was gone forever. We'll put this right here. You guys keep an eye on that for me. RX8 is the best car. Keep repeating that. RX8 is the best car. Put it in the comments. What did I say? Rather do 5 RX8 engines than an FD RX7. Woo! Close. Close. Oh. You know you want it. All the way in. There's no rotary engine vehicle that can defeat Mr. Rad. I will inevitably get the engine back in, no matter what. So, my passenger side engine mount, it doesn't fit perfect because the flange isn't on. So right now the engine's just sitting in there. I've got to put the header back on. So I've got to lift the engine up, take the engine mount back off, put the header on, then put the engine mount back on. Then this thing will sit in here perfect. Sometimes you just got to be in the engine bay with the engine. Especially on these RX8s, they've got these engines jammed so far down in here. If you need to like hook up the coolant line on the back of the engine because you forgot to put that line on while the engine was out of the car, and then now it's buried down in the car, you just gotta be one with your car. Just be in here, get up close and personal, and make sure you got everything hooked up right. Very close to firing this up. I got to put the upper intake manifold on, put the upstream O2 sensor in it. Probably gonna have to extend the wiring for that. Might just plug the O2 sensor in, see if it starts. And I got a couple vacuum lines to sort out and hook up. I just got to find the little preformed line. Closer, getting closer though. It's the moment that we've all been waiting for. Will this thing actually start and run after all this crazy work? So, still missing the mid pipe. I haven't completed that section of the job yet, but we can do that after we start it here in this video. Everything has been buttoned up. It's got oil in it. We're ready to crank this thing over. I don't have any water in this deal, so we're just gonna run it for a short bit. We just want to hear it make noise. We just want to make sure we got all 6 rotor faces, then everything is happy inside of this engine. That's all we really want to know at this point. We're just gonna crank this thing for about 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute, and just try to get some oil flowing through this thing. I did prime the oil pump before I put this engine in the car, so I filled the oil pump full of oil when I was assembling the engine, but it has been a couple days. Sometimes that oil likes to seep out. Right now the fuel pump fuse is pulled, so it shouldn't start. You could do this simply by holding the gas pedal all the way down as well, which shuts off the fuel injectors, but we're just gonna crank this thing, make sure we got all 6 faces, you know. And I guess ultimately just make sure it cranks. So when everything goes crazy like that, it's probably a ground wire. So let's check our grounds. Ground loose right here. Looks like it's happy. Okay, it tried to start on my assembly lube. Alright, I should probably turn the ignition coils off. Take 10. Wrong fuse. But this thing's gonna run. I just want no spark. Finally, just disconnect the ground for the ignition coils. Alright. Let me crank this for a jiffy. No major leaks under the car. Fuel pump fuse is in. Prime the fuel system. I've got my ear protection in because this thing is open header and it is going to be loud. Alright. Welcome to the world of a hybrid, I guess. First start's a little bit always funky, even though we already heard it. Oh yeah. ECU already figured it out. Alright, that's enough for me, folks. Smoked out the shop, a late night thunderstorm going on. There's no major puddles under the car. We had oil pressure. Get fired up, literally, because the hybrid is officially fired up. Those of you who said, the people on the internet, hybrid RX8s, all talk, no show, everybody who talks about doing them never makes them run. Well, look at that. The hybrid is officially running. So drop in the comments below what you think this thing is going to make on the dyno. I'm going to get the rest of this deal buttoned up. We're going to take this thing for a drive in the next video. And then, before you know it, we're going to have this thing on the dyno, making some horse puppies, hopefully more than stock, so that all this extra work, everything it takes to get a hybrid into one of these RX8s, do all the crazy engine stuff, the crazy engine mounts, the oil metering pump stuff, every single little thing starts to add up when you start to put one of these together. If all of that was worth it for, 20 extra horsepower. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep it rad, and we'll see you in the next one. Shoo! Boy, am I ready to go home. It has been a mega hectic week, everything leading up to this, getting that thing done. Cutting stuff on the plasma table, guys. Oh yeah, let me just throw that. And I'm stoked. Super pumped. First gen stuff's going well. And then this little, hint at some other things we got going on. Peace, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching the videos. We'll see you in the next one.